Hey, love, before we jump in, I want to make you aware that Tools of Transformation is open as of now, and it holds all the exercises that I wish I would have known when starting on my spiritual journey, even before, because would I have known how much it helps my daily life to reset my nervous system, to release stress, release anger, to energetically make conversations go my way before I even have them, or what mirror work can do, my life would have been shifted. So I really invite you to check that out. Link is in the captions below. And now we jump straight into the episode to have another wonderful conversation about how to get to this point of empowerment, how other women did it, what tools they used, what perspective shifts they found for themselves, how they navigated their life to come back to their empowerment. Enjoy the episode.
I'm sorry.
Hey, beautiful souls. I'm so happy to welcome you into another episode of About Her. I have the wonderful Melissa today with me, and I'm really excited because Melissa does something really beautiful. And yeah, Melissa, I would love you to introduce yourself so that people have kind of a bit of a feeling of what you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. My name is Melissa. I'm a holistic hairstylist and I incorporate energy healing modalities into my hair services. I did that because of my own journey. Energy healing is something that really helped me with like my health and honestly mental, physical, like emotional, spiritual well-being. And I had this space where I started to recognize that a lot of my clients were having similar like issues that I had prior and was working through and still am working through, but it led me into like exploring offering these services to clients to help them on their journey. So like my whole mission is to help people connect back to themselves because that's really like at the core of it all is like we are intuitive and we have these answers within ourselves, and having a space where you can be like relaxed and calm enough to hear that inner part of yourself is one of the things that I realized was helping me a lot of guidance back to myself. So I wanted to be intentional in the salon because, you know, people joke about us being therapists, but there's a reason for it. We're working on people's crown chakra all day. And that's why people just start talking to you, right? And being intentional about this, and it also helps your energy too as a hairstylist to kind of navigate that and have intention behind things, shift the conversations, or maybe kind of guide your client back to themselves versus like just having like just kind of chaos and a lot going on. And yeah, it's just like such a more healing experience. Yeah, that's kind of a little about me.
I think it's so nice because like when we met up the first time and you shared that, I was like, why did nobody ever thought about that? It's so clear once you think about like you're working on the head, on the crown chakra, you're having the whole like head energy for the totality of whatever it is, an hour maybe. So no wonder that people are kind of influenced by that. And especially for women, most of us like have this like really intimate relationship with our hair, and depending on how it looks today, it makes us feel a certain way. So the connection is actually quite obvious. But then again, I think most people don't even think about it, and it's really, in hindsight, it's kind of fascinating that it's not common knowledge, or that not every hairstylist does it. But I feel there's there's a lot to do and a lot to learn when you approach hairstyle or like working with the head basically in a holistic way. Because like my hairdresser, I told you, I have someone who does like a little bit of what you do, like using the hair in an energetic way and like treating it that way. And she always said like the way the hair is structured, it says so much about the state you're in. And I think if you bring these little pieces together and look at it holistically, there's so much benefit that your clients can get out of it besides a hair that looks great, because it's just so much more than the superficial layer of, it looks shiny and it's kind of like in the right position for that moment. But that there's a lot more to it. And yeah, I thought a lot about like why isn't that common practice?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like reminding me too, I've been doing a lot of like big chops lately. And I think that that's so like relevant to everything too, right? Like your hair holds energy. So when you want to like cut off a lot of hair, it's because you're ready to let go of those like years or those months or whatever was going on. And sometimes I think people hold on to their hair or they are attached to it because they're not ready to let go of maybe that version of themselves or the past or there's so much to that. So even energetically when you cut hair off, like there's so much to that. So yeah, like just being intentional and guiding people to what's going on, because like you said, sometimes there's stress or there's things going on internally too, and having guidance on like, okay, well, what's going on? Have you been to the doctors? How are your hormones? Are there any deficiencies? And that can translate into your hair. But if we're just thinking about the physical part of the hair and just like, oh, okay, like your hair's thinning, here's this like product, which I have that too, but like there's steps to that. Like if, as a whole, like the inside and the outside work together. So that's kind of, you know, like important, I feel like.
It makes a lot of sense to like not only look at what do you eat in in like resulting in your hair being shiny or not, but also like what do you take in as a stress, or what are you going through as in emotional level? Has there been a major like heartbreak or loss or whatever that you could then visibly see, not only maybe with the sags under your eyes, but also in your hair? And so I think it's really interesting, because what you touched upon before is like this: if we cut our hair from like really long to really short, then most people say like, that has been such a release, or that was necessary for me. So there's kind of a subconscious knowledge about what you just touched on, that the hair is holding a lot of information about our past and kind of mirrors that back, I think. And I feel there's a lot of empowerment when we use it intentionally, and when you go to the hairstylist more intentionally and not like only for the looks, but if there's a more complete view in it. And I wonder if you kind of over time have started seeing patterns on how the structure or the color or whatever you feel in the hair, if there's like something matching between people, like if there's like when there's heartbreak or when there's stress, if you see the hair behaving kind of in a similar way through various people. Is there something of a pattern that you recognize?
I think one of the patterns that's familiar to me is like hormonal changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's like also a mirror and a reflection of my own journey. And my journey of dealing with like fibroids and hormonal changes and that whole process. So I typically ask my clients if they're having like any thinning, stuff like that, like about their hormones. Like, have you had them checked? How, what's going on with them? And a lot of the times they're like, oh, yeah, this one thing is happening. And I'm like, okay. And then also postpartum hair loss, very common. I definitely deal with that a lot. So for me, I'm sure, and like the big chops tend to be also like sometimes just like a shift for them. So, I've had people who've gone through breakups or loss or divorces, stuff like that, and they don't always get the chop right away, but at some point they do when they're ready to kind of release it. Yeah, so like those are some of the patterns I've that are I think common for me because it's all a reflection for us too, right? Our clients are our mirrors.
Totally be different for someone who has their focus on like kind of different part of life. But I think it's really interesting that there are certain things coming up, and that there are like, it mirrors back to me that a lot of women have like things going on with the hormones in different like ways, but that this is kind of something that comes to the surface for a lot of women, and that then reflects back to so many areas of our lives, because I feel like often things are looked at so separately. So it's like you get your hair done, but that doesn't do anything to you, or you need to go to the doctor for hormones, but that's not affecting any other area in your life. There's often this like view of everything is kind of compartmentalized, when in reality it feels like, to me, it feels like everything is totally intertwined, and the one thing of course like has a ripple effect on the other. And like becoming aware through many different areas or insights in our life is, I think, really a learning experience. And what you touched on before, like this coming back to yourself, it's kind of a like getting to know yourself a little better through that lens. And then maybe you puzzle piece together something else, and it's kind of like all coming together so that you have the chance to get to know yourself more, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful things we can do, to like really get in contact, because so many of the women that I've spoken to for the podcast, for example, have said that their kind of like awakening, or the shift in their lives happened when they were totally disassociated from their body. And it was kind of like this, okay, that's my body over here, and that's my thoughts over here. And it was kind of this like bridging together of the mental and the physical, or the emotional and the physical. And I think the work you do is especially beautiful because it's kind of like it's it's both combined, because the hair holds so much emotion in so many women. And it's a nice way to, like you said, work on the crown chakra, like do something for the exterior, but also do something for our inner world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, our body has to experience the safety. It has to experience like all these things. Like I tell people that our body doesn't speak English or Spanish or Portuguese. Like it doesn't speak a language. Like it speaks its body language. Like so I didn't understand that until I did receive energy healing, and I did nervous system regulation, like a somatic therapy. So to me, it's very connected, and I feel like it's the same in a way. And so I understand energy healing in a way that, like, to me, it's like regulating for the nervous system. Like, we're regulating the nervous system and we're connecting the nervous system back, like, with, like our mind and body are connecting again. And I think that's like how you said, like, there's so much like compartmentalizing of like physical and then emotional, and it's like separate, but like our physical body starts to manifest the emotional and mental stuff, right? So when you learn about the chakras and you understand it, and then you start to read like what are some of the ailments and where does it start and where does it manifest? It's pretty mind blowing when you're like, oh my God, that lower back pain, for example, is coming from, whatever emotional thing that's going on. And you can see even the pattern in people, like when they're saying certain things or how their life kind of is. And it's like, oh my God, like that makes so much sense. And that's what happened to me too, with like my sacral chakra and just understanding like feminine energy, creativity. That's like, our sexuality. And when you look at women as a whole, right, like you said, a lot of women, seems like a lot of women are having hormonal imbalances or issues with fertility, with so many things. And it's like our sacral chakra, that's our womb. And we have been suppressed a lot in our sexuality and our creativity, like all these things that it's fascinating to think of it that way and be like, okay, like, are these things manifesting in our body now? Like it's showing up as physical ailments, like dis-ease in the body. And once that started clicking for me, that's also when I was like, oh my God, like, I'm seeing this pattern, and how can I help? How can I help women connect back to their body so they can listen to that and connect with their body so that they know what steps to take next? And sometimes it just takes like 5 minutes of like not being in fight or flight. And that's one of the things where Some people are in fight or flight for years. They've never had even like a minute of being in a regulated nervous system. And that was me. I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea I was doing that. And it just takes baby steps. And then the more that you experience that, again, your body has to experience that to know that it's like safe. It has to experience it and like everything was fine. And then it's like, okay, I can go a little longer next time. It's safe to be still. But, you know, when you first do it, it feels very unsafe to be still because we've been almost programmed to be in our masculine energy all the time. Like, be logical, be in your masculine, do, hustle, hustle, hustle. And that also translates, right? Like, my sacral chakra was telling me, like, it's okay to be in your feminine. Like, I need you to like balance, like needed balance, because there's healthy feminine, healthy masculine. And I didn't understand all of that, but looking back now, it makes sense. And so the more that you experience the safety in your body of it's safe to be still, you'll be able to do it longer and longer. And it's still something I have to practice, but it's very interesting that, like, yes, like, you know, and a lot of these imbalances could be coming from stress. Like you said, it could be coming from our environment, like our environment around us, but we're not realizing that the stress could be causing like hormonal imbalances when you're in a stress response for too long. And then that translates into like the hormonal imbalances. And then instead of kind of looking at the overall thing, people are like, well, your hormones are imbalanced, so here's like the pill. But then you're still going to the stressful situation in your work environment or relationships or whatever it is, and you're treating the symptom of the hormones when the hormone imbalance could have started with maybe the stress at work or, you know, not setting boundaries, and now all your relationships are boundaryless and you're needing to figure out that or whatever it might be. So it's fascinating, like all of it is connected, but you know, sometimes it's not seen that way and you treat the symptoms of things and still feel like dysregulated, right?
Of course. And I think
Yeah.
it's something I wonder about for a long time. So I thank you for bringing that up because it actually does not make any sense to like kind of take a pill for something like a hormone imbalance to me. I don't judge anyone who does, but like from the standpoint I work on, and that's what you touched upon too, is like you're treating a cause and it might look like your symptom is going away, but it's actually like only suppressed and your body has one layer more to do because now you need to like kind of digest that chemical pill that you've took in, and maybe your digestion has the next problems coming up. So it's actually adding more instead of like really looking at, hey, is there anything within my energy system, however you want to call it? There are more scientific approaches and more like, you know, spiritual approaches, but I would say regardless of what approach you take, this like looking at the root cause and seeing where the stress is coming from. Where do I feel, you know, not seen, not heard, not worthy, not enough, or too much, or whatever it might be, that causing that stress or this insecurity. And then working from there is, I think, like the opposite of this band-aid that we often put on with taking a pill for something that is just not fitting into our lives, instead of like really looking like, what do I need? As you said with the sacral, like, what did you really need? You needed safety. You needed like the freedom to express yourself and to not need to fit into the patriarchal like box that most of us were conditioned to fit into, work in a certain linear way or to hustle or whatever that we have learned and picked up on our way, which definitely is not the way that we would have like evolved if there wouldn't have been the conditioning. There's a lot layers that we can like kind of, you know, release and come back to ourselves. And I feel the moment we approach it from a holistic perspective, whichever it might be, we can like get really to the cause and learn that there is something we can do about things where this like this illnesses that are not treatable or whatever we have been told. I don't think that's true. I think we can it's kind of like maybe an emotional issue that started the whole thing, or the stress issue. And so that's also the reverse. You can, and it might be a longer journey. Me too. I had the same thing, like you said. I wasn't even realizing that most of my life, I think the first 30 years, I was living in a constant fight or flight. No wonder I have a totally dysregulated nervous system. No wonder I have hormonal issues. No wonder I have this or that pain, because my body is constantly thinking something really bad is happening really soon. But it was baseline, and therefore I wasn't even aware of it. It was just my normal. Like in hindsight, I'm realizing, no, that's actually not how everyone operates, and that's actually not how you need to operate. But as it was, and I feel a lot of us have that. A lot of people, women or not, have this baseline that is not, regulated. And therefore, it's kind of a journey to tell your body, like, it's now safe. And then you might 5 minutes into the day, you might need to tell your body again, like, it's not safe. And you need to, like, really commit to making your safety or your well-being a priority. And yeah, so I think it's a really beautiful approach. And I would love to know, like, is there a certain approach that you take with when people come to you just quote unquote for hairstyling? Do you like offer Reiki or energy practices like openly, or is it more something that kind of flows in and people might or might not be aware? Is there like a certain demand of people? I think you touched upon that, like now over time people say like, okay, I want to, I'm coming for you to you for exactly that version of hairstyling and not the regular approach. So is there any specific practice that you kind of like feel that's really working well for you and your clients?
Yeah. So yeah, what I do is like known, like when you book the appointment, I kind of explain everything. Like it's included in the hair services. Anyone could always opt out if they're like, you know what, I don't want that or whatever the case. It's not like mandatory. And I totally respect that. At the shampoo bowl, every haircut client receives like a combination of like aromatherapy, Reiki, craniosacral therapy. It just depends kind of on their intention. And that's the key too. I always ask like before we even go to the shampoo bowl, we do a scalp massage with essential oils, and that's based on their intention. So, whatever their intention is for that day, we choose the oil, scalp massage. So, they're already like walking in, I have essential oils going in. They walk in, they already are getting like present grounding with the essential oils, and then they get to choose one, so more like presence, right? You're smelling the oil, taking that in, and then at the shampoo bowl, if they'd like the energy healing, I kind of pick that based on their intention. And crystal healing also sometimes is like what I do. And then I actually do full body waxing as well. And for that, I have a biomat, and that is like this heated mat that has crystals infused in it. So when someone lays down to get waxed, they're getting the energy healing properties of the crystals and essential oils as well. So that's kind of how I mix everything in. And sound healing is, I also use that and incorporate that at the shampoo bowl. I feel like that is something that is really helpful for me personally too, just the sounds and kind of getting you into that like state of relaxation. So yeah, that's kind of how I incorporate it. And really quick, I wanted to mention something because you were talking about, you know, being in that state of like being dysregulated and not even knowing because it's your baseline. And that's exactly what I learned when I did the somatic healing therapy, and I worked with a coach around that during the pandemic. And it's kind of like so wild how it's your thoughts. Like you could be having a great day and feel safe, and as soon as you start feeling that like safety or that like calmness, your mind will literally create something for you to come back to the baseline of being anxious. So that was really fascinating for me to learn. And the practices or tools that was given to me, like tapping or just like looking around the room and saying colors to yourself, like certain things that like your logical brain can't understand why it works. So that's another big thing about, like the energy healing or just tools and practices to get your body to start feeling safe. A lot of it doesn't really make sense to the logical brain because it's not supposed to, because it's supposed to speak to your body. So yeah, that came to me and I just wanted to share that too. Sometimes even explaining Reiki sometimes, like your logical brain sometimes is just like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Right. And then you experience it. And when you experience it, you're like, oh, okay, I think I'm starting to understand. But that is the part of us that I think we've lost a little bit, is that there are things and wisdom in our body that we can't always explain, and when we talk about science, there's so much unexplained in science. There's so much unexplained in physics. And then there is so much that's explained also.
Yeah.
So it's, like accepting both and like allowing ourselves to be okay with not always knowing why something works, but if it's working, like just embracing the mystery, within that, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that, especially because you touched upon masculine and feminine energy before and how like we aim for balance, let's say like that. But I think it's the same thing with this. Like we have been told, or society now, without blame, but society now is like focused very much on logical decision making or logical stuff in our life. Everything needs to kind of be explainable and logic, and there needs to be that really obvious pattern that is very much the masculine way of doing things. And what has been lost, I totally agree with you, is this like feminine approach of like, how does this feel? Like really feeling how the space feels. And it doesn't have to make sense. And you make kind of the decision out of the body awareness and not so much out of the like mental, I don't want to say chatter because it's not, I don't want to devalue it, but like not out of the mental state alone. And so the combining of the two is, I think, where we really get the wisdom out. And sometimes you lean on that and sometimes you lean on that, but it kind of, if there's a bit more balance to it, I feel our body really kind of gives this sigh of, oh my God, yeah, she's listening to me as well. It's not only the like logical way of doing things, but like you said, when you experience Reiki or any other energy healing, your logic might say like, what's that? What should that do? But then you feel it and it's like, oh my God. And that's
Yeah.
the value is the same. So nothing is more valuable than the other one, but it's like just so different. And it doesn't need to always be logical, explainable to be important to you in that moment, or to be healing, or to like, give you that little spark that you needed to then change something major in your life. And I just like when you talked about how you do things in your salon, I felt like that must be the most heavenly place to be with the
Aw.
essential oils and the sound and like, oh my God. I feel it's like a lot of self-worth things come up for my clients these days, so I might be focused around that a lot. But it feels like, in addition to the obvious, treatment that you get, it's kind of like a self-care practice, much more than it is just the physical change of appearance. It's like really a saying yes to wanting to feel safe, or wanting to be treated well, or wanting to be seen. And like you said, you connect to the intention. So I feel there's a lot of elements that go into that are like way beyond a classical like hairstyling, of course, but I feel it's like these layers go so much deeper. So the spark that they initiate, I think, can be like just enormous. So I'm really curious to see how that unfolds with like time, when people come to you over and over and over again, and maybe after 10 years, how much they have changed just by, regularly coming back and having this like spark. Because I don't know about you and your journey, but for me, although I've always been passionate about like self-growth and always learning, there are kind of areas or time space things where it's there is more growth, and then there are areas where it feels like stuck or where nothing happens. And sometimes that's because there is no regular, I feel, there's no regular reoccurring thing. So the moment you have something where you, okay, every, I don't know, X month I go and I have a treatment and I do something good for myself, then it kind of like keeps the momentum of growth. And so I imagine that's the same for you as it is if you like choose to go to a mentor or on a retreat regularly, that there is this kind of like, keeping the momentum of the change that it sparked.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. And I feel like sometimes we need time to just integrate and kind of take in. And then, yeah, when you feel that stuckness, it could be, maybe you aren't caring for yourself, you need something, or yeah, it could be, it's just a message, right? And we get to like connect back to ourselves to kind of figure out where we want to go with that, or do we want to just sit with it? Yeah, totally. And one of the things that like for my clients that I see over and over again, because for me it's like how can I connect them back to themselves? And so when they are at the shampoo bowl, when they're getting these sessions, like they just feel like they zone out. And a lot of them are like, I'm not able to zone out. Like I can't just have like a blank space. So they get so like relaxed and kind of like on cloud nine when they're done, that the whole like process of it all, and also being in like a private suite, so like it's just us, there's no like stuff going on around. At the end of the service I like to have them pull a card, and I don't pull it for them, I don't like shuffle for them, I just like do a quick shuffle and I fan it out, and then they pull a card. And I just love watching it over and over again when someone picks something that is literally what we were just talking about, or something that they really needed. And it's like, you know, you're just as witchy as me, girl. Like you picked the card, like you picked that card, you followed your intuition. And it comes from that space of just like intuition, right? Like you're not really thinking, you're just intuitively like choosing, right? And I think that's also something important to state, right? Like sometimes we think like if we're overthinking, or like sometimes certain feelings or anxiety, like when you are listening deeply to like that voice, it tends to be from like just a little random inkling, not anything like overly anxious, or like like the overthinking isn't really where it's coming from. It's usually when you're in that state of calm, you're just kind of like in the flow, and you're like, I'm just gonna pick this one, and then you pick it and you're like, oh my god, that's like perfect. Because I think at first for me too, it was really hard to discern between what was my guidance and what wasn't, and that just takes time. I think the more that you connect back to yourself, so it's like a coming home to yourself over and over again. And yeah, I feel like I went on a little rant, but
I think like how magical it must be if things just like, are reflected back perfectly, of course, because the universe doesn't make mistakes, perfectly to your clients,
yes,
to whatever they need. And this like confirmation that you can do that too. I think that's really important. You touched upon that. It's so
yes,
often we kind of try to say like, oh, that person, I need to go to that person to connect to my intuition or to get the answer. And while that sometimes might help, sometimes you can also do it for yourself, and you have the amazing result that you would get when you go somewhere, because it's like often it's about trusting ourselves and like giving us the value and reminding ourselves of the capability that we hold to like hear what our intuition says. And as you said, like often it's more of the subtle voice. So I think like the process of coming down from that hustling and doing a lot of stuff and going into stillness, which is, as we talked before, like often really uncomfortable and really unfamiliar to people. Well, of course, in the society we live, but that's kind of the key to learning to differentiate between what is intuition and what is like the mind chatter. And like, because intuition is, I feel it's like very, very, very small voice. It's not very loud. Sometimes it's like really subtle, and you need to like really listen to hear it. And if you're not attuned to that, and you would just override with the louder thoughts of anxiety or stress or whatever it is that is more present, and you can't even hear it. And so many people I know say like, I don't connect to my intuition. It's like, it's impossible. You do, but maybe you just haven't learned that language yet. And I think when you can gift people with these experiences of, oh, I can do that too, and that kind of like sparks a curiosity or even like a little bit of confidence in that area, what could happen out of that? Like a few years down the road, maybe they're pulling tarot cards for themselves every day, or like intuitively doing some energetic healing. So there's always this spark that kind of initiates a transformation, and it could be very well just the awareness that you can do it too, because this externalizing is like a big, I don't want to say illness, but almost an illness that we have in our world that I see, where everyone always says like, okay, she can do that, and I go for her for that. But we have so much power in ourselves that we kind of forgot that it's there. And it's so beautiful if we can remember, like you said, with these small exercises of like doing a bit of tapping or looking around the room, or I do ground myself often when I get like an anxious whatever wave coming on. And it's quite easy if you know how, but if you don't know, you feel like you're victim to a situation or to your emotions or to whatever, when it's just the case that you haven't learned which tool to use. But you could, if you know, you're absolutely capable of doing it. And I think that gives a lot of, maybe what you phrase like coming home to ourselves, is this empowerment, that I'm always wishing for people to discover that they already have dormant within themselves.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like waking it up a little bit
Mm,
and,
kind of.
yeah. And it takes practice. And I think that, like you said, like we're human. Like we also struggle with this all the time, even though we've gone through this journey. It's easy to kind of sometimes get sucked back into these patterns of like the worst case scenario thinking. And that's kind of where it's loud, where it feels loud, because it's like, but what if? And I have to like watch out, and I have to make sure I know all of like the scenarios that are bad that could happen so I can protect myself, right? And that's like even with love, right? Like there's so much risk in that. But even with love with your child, right? Like having a child, like loving someone so much, like there's risk in love in general with friends, like it, but without, I mean, what if you were just like, I don't want to have a baby because I don't want to love anything too much because I'm going to hurt myself. Like it's going to hurt too much. I have to protect myself. And like no one does that, right? So why do we do that with like everything else? Like there's risk with kind of everything, but that doesn't mean that something bad is going to happen. And I think like when we make decisions coming from a different place where we can trust ourselves and trust that even if something were to happen, we would know how to navigate it. We would figure out how to navigate it. But I think we just want to prevent that. We want to prevent any bumps in the road because we want to get there faster, but that's just not how it works.
What? Yes, I totally know what you mean, and I definitely feeling like I caught myself on this a lot of times, like this. I want to just get there, and yeah, I know it's about
Yeah.
process, but like sometimes I kind of forget, and then it's like I want to get there fast. But what is it about that fastness that we all have? Like, why is it so important for us humans to just get somewhere instead of like enjoying the journey? Like one of the mentors that or one of the like channelers that I love listening to is Abraham Hicks, and they always give the analogy of the GPS. where we like kind of program into our GPS we want to go to whatever, New York. And nobody really questions that we get there because we put it in. So somehow this magical thing will bring us there and we can enjoy the road. And however long it takes, it's kind of like it's clear that at one point, with a bit of traffic or not, we will get there. But why are we not with our intuition or with our goal setting? Why are we not equally confident? And we're constantly doubting and then turning around and then turning around again and then stopping and saying, it's not working, instead of like just trusting. And when I've heard that the first time, I needed to laugh out loud so hard because that was very much me, totally distrusting in the whole process. And I think it's rooted in this deep unworthiness that so many of us, like for whatever reasons, have taken on, that like kind of like we're not worthy of having it all. It shouldn't be easy. And if something is easy, you know, you kind of wait for the bad thing to happen. Or there's this like belief that the world is hard and that everything is working against us. And I feel like when we can shift that everything is working out for us, that for me, there was like a big relief to see, actually, maybe I don't have to fight all the time. Maybe some things just work out and I just have no idea how, but they do. This like establishing this trust it's so important, but at the same time, there's no control in it. So like you mentioned, like this kind of control that we want to have, or the pre-planning, and we kind of want to have everything figured out. For me, that's very much the trying to know what's happening next, because that'll make us feel safer instead of trusting to whatever comes and that it will be best, even though we have no idea.
Yeah. And I'm totally guilty of this almost every day. You know, like we're human, right? Like we have wisdom and we speak it, and then sometimes the next day we literally forget it. Like, you know, and it's just like, again, like a coming back to ourselves over and over and over again. And you know, sometimes I want to say want the support. You know, we could say we need the support, but I think empowering yourself to say, I want and I choose the support, because, you know, that's what people are choosing when they come to me. They're choosing a place that they feel supported so they can connect to themselves, so they can pick those cards. We have it in us, like you said, but there's times where I'm like, I just want someone to bring it out of me. Like, I want to go to like my Reiki girl, or I want to go to my like I want them to bring it out of me. Like I want that support, and that's okay too. And simultaneously knowing like I have this wisdom too and I'm capable of it. And then there's times where we're having a hard time finding it in ourselves. So we seek that support, and having like a community of people that you can go to and reach out to. And it's a mirror for yourself too. Like we talk a lot about mirrors, like in a negative way, essentially, like, oh, that person is a mirror, right? Like for whatever it's going, but like when you see someone and you see their beauty and you see their wisdom and you see all these things in them, it's a mirror for you too, that you also have that within yourself when you can see that in someone else. So like also remembering that too, that like there's a reason you want and you're choosing to seek support from certain people, because you also are, you have that within yourself and you admire it in them. But yeah, and that just kind of came to me.
That's really beautiful. And then I agree that we so often use this mirror for like, oh, that person mirrors that back to me and I need to know that. And yes, that's true, but that's true for all experiences. And this like you said, when you recognize the beauty in someone or their like talent and whatever, then it's because you recognize because you're on the same frequency somewhere, something inside of you vibrates at the same level. So you recognize that beauty. And that's, I think it's actually like really beautiful how the universe works. It's really so nice if you think about it, how many opportunities we have to come back to ourselves, and how many opportunities the universe gives us daily, every second, to see like, oh, that's how cool you are. That's how much power you have. That's what you could do. It's actually all empowerment. And most times I feel we, for whatever reason, are misinterpreting the signal. And it's like, if you see someone really beautiful, at least here where I live, we have been conditioned to say like, oh, she's so beautiful. And then you compare her to you and you see like where you're not that. Maybe you're not that skinny, or maybe your nose is not that whatever small, or whatever it might be that you're looking at. But we compare and then we see the less in ourselves, and like giving all the love to that person instead of seeing like, why do I recognize her silhouette, or why do I recognize her facial structure? Because there's something in me that reflects it back. So I think we just got it backwards, the way we look at the signs that we get, instead of saying, like you said, that there is so much we can do. And if you go to a tarot reader, then that's because this talent of tarot wants to be revealed within you, and not because someone else is capable and you're not. And yeah, I feel there's a lot of learning to do in the best possible way. Um, and actually, it's like really in our face all the time, and we just don't see it, which is kind of hilarious. But at the same time, it's really cute that we're we know we're keeping ourselves so small, but we don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. It really is such a mindset thing, right? Like it's like reprogramming these subconscious things that we don't even realize are just in our heads or what we're speaking. And like when you have that different mindset, or you're practicing or working on subconscious reprogramming, like you could probably start to see the mirrors in a positive way. But we do have a lot of that like negative stuff, the comparing, right? Because it's all to like essentially protect ourselves, right? Like comparing ourselves, like, when compare the beauty with someone, it's like, oh, like they're more beautiful. That means that they are gonna somehow take something away from you, or whatever the case might be. But like the comparison, it's still coming from that lack of safety, scarcity, not feeling enough, not, so it's like you said, it's still a message for us, and it's a mirror for our subconscious. Like, why am I thinking that? Why can I not see that it's a reflection of also like
Mhm.
what is within myself, right? Like, very interesting to think about.
And maybe it's back to you. I forgot to touch on that before, but now it comes up again. You really beautifully touched upon that point, that the baseline that we have set for ourselves, for whatever reason, as normal, is what we always go back to. Of course, it's like kind of our default setting. And if that is like on a very high stress level, then it's always what we kind of like fall back to. And I think it's the same thing, that if our baseline is or our safety, we get our safety from comparing ourselves to others, and then like kind of realizing we're not that good as them, and that's our safety level, or our default setting, then it's always what we're gonna fall back to. So that's where the programming needs to come into, not to like kind of work on you externally, but more like to see like, what am I noticing? What am I seeing here? How am I, or where am I always falling back to learn that our nervous system is the thing that wants to be looked at, wants to be treated in a way, wants to heal, so that we can hold more or see a different version of ourselves. And it's not so much the exterior stuff that we need to change, but more of this like, okay, how can I learn to not fall back into a baseline that is like full of stress and anxiety? And that's when I feel the most safe. But how can I feel safe without that? How can I feel safe maybe when I'm being seen, or when I'm in overflow, or when whatever it is that your issue is pointing you towards? But it's like really, again, working on the root cause, and not so much on just a symptom that you see when you recognize something and you feel initially less worthy or less good compared to that other human that you're seeing. So it's again the reflection, and it's again the root cause. And I think there are so many ways to get there. And that's actually why I'm doing that podcast, because I think there are so many ways to get there, and depending on where we are in our journey, we kind of need to hear that, or we kind of better connect to that way or approach. But it's actually not so much about the approach, it's more about like the underlying message of like, we can all come back to our power. We can all listen to our intuition. We can all like kind of reprogram ourselves in a way that we can save, or if we can feel safe in authenticity and not in taking on a mask. But it takes a lot of like awareness and a lot of like hearing it from different places to even consider, depending on the journey that we have been on before. So I think it's like really necessary. What do you do with your offers, and what all the people that I've interviewed so far, or what I do in my offers, is like this, helping people to come back to themselves, which sounds so easy, but that again, it's like a big thing, actually.
Yeah, I remembered something too that I wanted to touch upon. Like, again, the mindset thing, and we were talking about like the risk of stuff and safety, and then, pain, for example, has been something that recently I've been pondering around, like a lot on, like, we assign meaning to things and we assign pain as something negative.
Mhm.
But I think that, like, again, like the GPS, we put it in and we don't question really the traffic or the bumps, or maybe like, oh shoot, we ran out of gas, and whatever the cases may be. And I think sometimes with life too, like you said, like we want to get somewhere fast, but that, like, why? Then you're there and you're already like kind of, well, what's next? And I think that like sometimes pain can teach us very valuable lessons, and pain isn't necessarily a negative thing. I think that, I mean, birth, for example, is one of, the things that are very painful for a woman to go through, but then there's like bliss at the end of it, right? Our menstrual cycles are painful, but they are the reason we give life. And they also are the reason we like have, these different phases, and it is who we are. And so I think sometimes, like having that shift in your mindset and like reprogramming, you can kind of see painful experiences in a different way. You still, I mean, want to feel what you feel, but sometimes, pain can bring you closer to people in the sense that maybe you understand now like a certain situation in a different way. So that can help you be actually a better therapist, a better hairstylist, a better, healer, because you experience something. And so now you can like connect with someone in a different way and actually be better, right? And like I feel like that's important to remember too, like the process of getting somewhere or the things that you go through don't always necessarily have to be negative, because they can come with so much positive from it. Like I feel like it's a gateway to, like yourself, it's a gateway to understanding things deeply, to exploring the next thing, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and I think it's one of the things that we collectively have kind of backwards, is that pain is always that thing to avoid, or it's always negative. And definitely, if you have pain, then a lot more pain will come out of that, instead of seeing it, like you said, like it is. So I just remember while you talked that one of my mentors always said pain is a cleansing mechanism, which I found really nice to look at it that way, that it's kind of cleansing us of like energy that is for whatever reason outdated. We don't need it. It's kind of like getting rid of it. And also, I totally agree, it's a portal, because if you look at things from that balance point again of like duality of masculine or feminine, or like good or bad, or light and shadow, is where I wanted to come to. Because like if pain is the shadow aspect, then the amount of pain you feel kind of can give you a glimpse on the amount of light that you could discover through it. So if you're in immense pain, that really sucks in that moment. Really, no devaluing there, but that can mean that you have a lot of light to reveal, that there is a lot of light behind that pain if you kind of I don't know, learn your lesson or get the insight that you need to get in that moment, or connect to back to yourself, however you phrase it. I think it's initially the same, but there's something good coming out of it because it comes from the universe, which is essentially just love and benevolence to us. So even that pain kind of is something good. And that's really not nice to hear in a situation that you're in pain. But in hindsight, at least I can say that it's always very easy to see it like that for me. Just in the moment, there's a lot of resistance to like embracing pain that easy. And that's why we often go to other people to kind of reflect that back to us and to kind of give us that perspective on it. But I feel it's like a really powerful thing, and we kind of discredit it a bit too much because there's so much growth happening when you're in pain, or could at least happen if you choose to look at it, to learn your lesson, to, I don't know, work through it, but not endure it, but like really see it as it is, maybe as an invitation to change, or as something that you want to look at. And then magical things can happen. And we kind of like just, oh, there's pain, let's take a pill. Like we started, let's try to numb the pain. That's the mechanism that seems to be in place most time.
Yes. Yeah. Suppress it, avoid it, like you said. Yeah. But it's like without pain, I mean, like you said, how would you know what bliss feels like or what happiness feels like? It would just be neutral if you didn't experience, challenges or, pain. Like everything would just be like normal, even though it was good, but it wouldn't be good because you wouldn't know.
What boring life would that be if everything would be just, so maybe it's really time to embrace that pain and to like say like, cool, good that you are here. Let's see how fun it can get, because that's a good sign actually. So I feel there's a lot of reprogramming or like deconditioning or letting go of old things that no longer serve us is already like in progress, but there's so much that we can do individually and collectively to like really let go of these old versions that keep us more small, and like really evolve into like this coming home that we started with. I think that's like nicely circling back to it. Like the way we come home to ourselves and the power we can find in that, it's definitely worth the pain that in the process sometimes come up when you ran out of gas or when you're in traffic jam, to go back to that example. But it's not meaning that you're not getting there. So maybe a little bit of trust is really helpful within the process.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. This feels like so complete right now.
Mm.
I thank you a lot for all that insights and that openness. And I loved how we touched upon so many different topics. It's like before we hit record, I said to you, like, let's see where the universe brings us. And of course, it was like really beautiful um, how, how things can go from this topic to this topic. And then again, at the end, it's all coming together to one complete picture. So thank you so much
Yeah.
for that journey. That was really lovely.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice to talk about it all and kind of dive in with someone, who's like as passionate as I am.
Good for the soul, isn't it? To like
Yeah.
to have conversations like these where we can just talk about what we love, and other people like listening to it. I think it's really it's really a gift. So
Yeah.
thank you a lot.
Thank you.